Hello, I'm Esther Gidhu-Yuot. It's Monday, October 17th. This is Africa 54.
Tunisian police clash with demonstrators protesting against President Kais Saied as public anger grows over fuel and food shortages. The United Nations says millions of people cannot afford to eat, while others are suffering malnutrition due to climate change and failing crops. And today we begin our profiles of the top 10 finalists in the Africa Digital Innovation Competition for African startups.
Two rival Tunisian opposition groups staged a massive protest against President Kais Saied over the weekend. The groups denounced his moves to consolidate political power as public anger grows over fuel and food shortages. Paul Ndiho has more.
Thousands of Tunisians flooded the streets of Tunis, denouncing what they see as an overreach of power by President Kais Saied. Protesters are demanding accountability for the country's long-running economic crisis. Saied staged a dramatic power grab in July last year and later pushed through a constitutional amendment enshrining his one-person rule, which critics are calling a return to autocracy in the only democracy to have emerged from the Arab Spring. The National Salvation Front, a coalition of opposition parties, including the Islamist-inspired Ennahda that had dominated Tunisia's parliament before its dissolution by Saied, organized the protests.
This demonstration expresses our rejection of the political measures announced by Kais Saied and the upcoming elections, which will only strengthen tyranny and dictatorship in the country.
Tunisians are barely coping with soaring food prices and shortages of basic staples in recent weeks. Sugar, vegetable oil, rice, and bottled water have disappeared from supermarkets. Food is not the only thing in short supply, with the country also lacking energy resources.
There is no gasoline, no water, and no milk. All roads lack maintenance. Throughout the day, the president addresses, threatens, and curses us, calling us agents of colonialism and garbage. That's why we are more impatient than ever. It is time for him to leave and declare that he is helpless.
President Saied, who moved to rule by decree after shutting down parliament last year and expanding his powers with the new constitution, says the measures were needed to save Tunisia from years of crisis. However, critics and Western allies say his overreach of power is jeopardizing Tunisia's young democracy.
I came today to defend my country and our rights. Tunisia is bleeding, hunger and poverty. And we have nothing in Tunisia like petrol. You have to wait hours to buy petrol. What is this system?
Saied's opponents say his actions are undermining the democracy that triggered the revolution that ousted former autocratic leader Zine al-Abidine Ben Ali. Ennahda and the Free Constitutional Party, long bitter foes, are now focused on the struggle against Saied. In July, Tunisian judges went on strike for nearly a month, protesting Saied's decision to fire 57 judges on June 1st. The president accused them of corruption and protecting terrorists, charges that the Tunisian Judges Association said were merely politically motivated. Saied's move heightened accusations at home and abroad that it has consolidated one-person rule after assuming executive powers during the summer and setting aside the 2014 constitution to rule by decree. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
For more insight in Tunisia's politics, I'm joined live via Skype from Cyprus by Salahuddin Saturi, a research fellow at William and Mary Global Research Institute. Mr. Salah, welcome to Africa 54.
Hi, how are you? It's a pleasure to be on here. Thank you so much for having me.
Right. So what seems to be the core issues that are bringing all this political upheaval that we're witnessing in Tunisia?
Yeah, so right about now, we're seeing massive shortages of food, water, bottled water, wheat, bread, petrol, and energy. You can see it in the neighbors in Algeria and Libya, and it's causing a massive strain on the economy and on the cost of living and the standard of living of the people in Tunisia. And this coupled with a political crisis that's been going on almost for a year and a half now, as of July 25th, 2021, when Kais Saied started ruling by decree and took over and froze the parliament. So now we're seeing post the new constitution, which was put in place in July 25th of this year, we are seeing the people sort of getting fed up with this new and terrible living standard in this country. They're fed up with the new government. They're fed up with this new system of governments. They're fed up with not being able to go to the grocery store and get food, and their basic necessities not being met. So that's what we're seeing, a lot of frustration out of the Tunisian people.
But how did Saied wield so much power?
So Kais Saied came into power in 2019, and he was actually extraordinarily popular, having almost 75% of the vote in a runoff. In the election, he was known as the RoboCop. He was a constitutional law professor, and he was a political outsider. So he was extraordinarily well loved. Throughout the COVID years, there was a lot of frustration, like in most countries, with the political system. But Kais Saied was able to avert a lot of that frustration due to COVID. When he ended up ruling by decree, freezing the parliament, putting many members of parliament in jail, trying them, and putting, for example, the member of the corruption corps in house arrest, and pretty much seizing presidential powers, hyper-presidential powers for himself, with the express intent to create a new constitution, which would have been put in place this year, which has been put in place this year. So this constitutional referendum was extraordinarily popular among many of the Tunisian public. You saw a lot of the opposition, which are now forcing these protests, the National Salvation Front, led by Najib Shabi, and Nahda, who is led by Rashid Ghannouchi, who are extraordinarily unpopular. Rashid Ghannouchi specifically has been blamed for political assassinations, which took place in 2013. Much of this has not been proven, but Rashid Ghannouchi is a main reason for Kais Saied's extraordinary popularity. But you still see this popularity dwindling as of after the COVID years. His popularity is dwindling, and I think these protests are showing that Kais Saied isn't as powerful and as untouchable as he was once portrayed to be.
Salah, thank you so much for your insight into Tunisia politics. Saladin Satuli is a research fellow at William and Mary Global Research Institute. The Ethiopian government on Monday recommitted to peace talks over Tigray, but did not address African Union appeals for a ceasefire, vowing instead to carry out defensive measures, including seizing airports and other federal facilities in the region. AU Commission Chair Musa Faki Mahamat is calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire as combat intensifies in the war in Tigray. Meanwhile, the International Rescue Committee says one of its workers was killed Friday in an attack in Tigray. The aid group says the worker was delivering life-saving humanitarian aid to women and children at the time of the explosion in the town of Shire. For more insight on the situation in Ethiopia, I'm joined by VOA Horn of Africa digital reporter Abraham Zere. Hello, Abraham.
Thank you, Itar, for having me.
You've been following this story, back home, and what is the latest?
Right now, as we speak, Guterres made a statement regarding the conflict in Ethiopia. He says 13 million people have been affected due to the conflict in the war. The war resumed after relative peace for 4 months, resumed in August 24. Since then, TPLF and the federal government and Eritrean government, which is also part of the conflict, have been accusing each other for inciting the conflict. Right now, millions of people have been suffering because they couldn't reach them with humanitarian aid. The conflict is still going on.
So we hear the Ethiopian government expressing the desire for peace talks to end this conflict. We also hear the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front saying they're willing to talk. But also we see the airstrikes in Tigray. What are you hearing from political analysts about this double standard from the Ethiopian government committing to peace and still bombing parts of Tigray?
It's very conflicting. Like right now, for example, yesterday, Musa Faki said parts should cessate hostilities and come back for negotiation. Tigray region accept this the offer. Ethiopian government said we are ready to do the peace talks, but again they are saying we also are about to take the Tigray's airports to facilitate humanitarian aspects, humanitarian aid. So it's conflicting, and each party is saying something in public and they're doing something else in private. So it's difficult to also gauge their commitment for peace.
Yeah, but do we even know if the proposed peace talks will still take place in South Africa? Do we even have a timeline for that yet?
Right now, we don't have any timeline. Before, it was scheduled for October 9th, and it fell last minute because it was not able to, they weren't ready for with facilities, with logistics, so they kind of canceled it. And it showed many parts were not even involved. The Tigray says we were not informed ahead of time, so we didn't know about it, but they accepted it anyway. So it's very difficult even to say if it will take place soon even.
Generally speaking, what has this war done to your native country of Ethiopia?
In fact, I'm from Eritrea, which also affects both the countries. Right now, Eritrea is also involved in the war. It's kind of dashed hopes of the region. It's killing thousands of people, either through direct conflict or through hunger or lack of access to medication, especially in Tigray, Amhara, and Afar regions, and particularly also Eritrea. So it's kind of affecting the region, the countries, and Africa at bigger.
Right. Thank you so much, Abraham.
Thank you for having me.
Abraham Zere is a digital reporter for VOA Horn of Africa. Chad's government says it is to receive 105 million grant from the World Bank to help prevent food crisis and adapt to climate shocks. Severe drought followed by the worst floods in 30 years have led to skyrocketing food prices and left a record 2 million people acutely hungry, according to the United Nations. The grant from the World Bank's Food Systems Resilience Program in West Africa will directly benefit at least 600,000 people. As World Food Day was commemorated on Sunday, millions of people worldwide cannot afford to eat, while others are suffering malnutrition as a result of climate change and failing crops. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization says 80% of the world's poorest people live in rural areas, and they are the hardest hit by natural and man-made disasters. Across East Africa, 4.2 million people face serious food insecurity, according to the Arid and Semi-Arid Land Humanitarian Network. The FAO says it's a matter of filling the stomachs of children and stopping hunger. Sadly, nutrition is second, which means many more face malnutrition.
The reports and even the situation around is getting worse in the sense that we are looking at the numbers that we get in our facilities in terms of children who are malnourished. And this could be as a result of food insecurity occasioned by the drought situation. There's an upsurge of numbers. We are getting numbers increasing, unlike before.
This water pan was constructed by KWS in the way of reducing water shortage, but we were only depending on rains. And for the last, I think, 4 years, we have not experienced any. And you can see the area is very dry. So the people around here are suffering a lot.
Last year and this year, the climate changed. And when it changes, we prefer to use drip irrigation. Last year, we planted, but the rain was scarce due to climate change. So we decided to dig wells, and we used that water to irrigate the crops. We have continued with that method this year. Whoever planted crops without drip irrigation did not harvest anything.
Humanitarian organizations are getting supplies to some of those who are in need, but they cannot meet everyone's needs. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has signed into law a bill criminalizing some internet activity despite concerns it could be used as a tool to silence criticism. The new legislation increases restrictions in a controversial 2011 law on the misuse of a computer. Earlier, I spoke to Alan Sempala Kigozi, head of legal services at Unwanted Witness, a digital rights group, and I began by asking him what the law entails.
It's a dark day, it's a dark moment for Ugandans. It's really unfortunate. The law really is superfluous. It wasn't needed. When Parliament definitely called for consultation. They invited us and we faced them. We gave them our opinion. Definitely, we disagreed with the law because the law in its current state stifles freedom of expression. This law, of course, they hid behind ensuring the right to privacy that is enjoyed without any hindrance. But we told them there is already a law that caters for the right to privacy. We have a Data Protection and Privacy Act, and you won't expect any justice for citizens, especially those that are allegedly prosecuted under that act. So the act, as it is right now, the amendment is a very unfortunate act, and it's actually a dark moment for Ugandans, especially us who really fight for the right of freedom of expression and free speech.
Do you think that President Museveni was also sending a message to his son, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who 2 weeks ago used Twitter threatening to use military force to capture Nairobi in 2 weeks' time?
Certainly not. Certainly not. That act was passed for opposition. Whoever challenges President Museveni, that many government supporters have gone away with a high level of impunity. They've done many heinous acts that really, and they've gone untamed. The president's son, definitely, when he misused Twitter and misused the foreign policy of Uganda, he was promoted to a full general. So certainly that's not an act of a president who wants to regulate and pull his son to order.
Alan, as you said, nearly everybody uses social media, and in particular the mainstream media. What's the reaction of Ugandan journalists?
Definitely, Ugandan journalists are disappointed. What this regime does is that it is increasingly going to rule by law and increasingly enacting acts or laws that are repressive and restrictive. When they were passing a law called the Public Management Order Act against political parties, many of the journalists saw it as that for political parties only and politicians. They went ahead and passed the NGO Act, the Non-Government Organizations Act, a very restrictive and repressive act for the works of non-profit organizations. Now they've done the amendment of the Computer Misuse Act. It has come for journalists. So anyone who seems to fight for freedom of expression for Ugandans, or anyone who seems to advocate for any right in Uganda, or seems to push for a change in regime, they are going to bring those acts. So this might not be the last act they are going to do. They're going to bring. They will increasingly bring more acts to target any group they seem or they deem to be not in their support, or encouraging those who don't support them to use their platforms. So definitely, it's a very unfortunate. Act for journalists.
That was Alan Sempala Kigozi, head of legal services at Unwanted Witness, a Ugandan digital rights group. Still to come, protests in Iran rage into their second month after a woman died while in police custody. We'll be right back.
The search is on for Africa's best and brightest minds in finance, cybersecurity, technology, and anything digital, making social impact through cutting-edge technologies, innovation, and creativity in Africa. Out of 17,000 candidates from 50 countries in North, Central, East, West, and Southern Africa, only 3 will be selected from the top 10 continental finalists from Egypt, Nigeria, Ghana, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Cameroon. Join the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and its prestigious partners, including the Voice of America, when the 3 finalists are featured at the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit in December 2022 in Washington. Stay tuned.
In other news, the NBA has announced that Basketball Hall of Fame and Congo native Dikembe Mutombo is undergoing treatment in Atlanta for a brain tumor. In August, Mutombo appeared with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at an event in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where he founded a hospital in Kinshasa. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has imposed a lockdown on 2 districts at the epicenter of an Ebola outbreak, barring personal travel, ordering a night curfew and shuttering public places. In Equatorial Guinea, President Teodoro Obiang Nguema is running for a 6th term. He has been in power for 43 years. Among the candidates he is facing is his former ally, Buenaventura Monse Asumu. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce's U.S. Africa Business Center is convening its first annual Africa Digital Innovation Competition for African startups. VOA is working as a media partner with the Africa Business Center on this initiative. Out of 17,000 candidates in 50 countries in Africa, the top 10 finalists have been decided. And for the next 2 weeks, we'll bring you a look at each one. We begin with Emadago Onekwe William from Nigeria, whose startup Valley Bee leverages tech to design and manufacture sensor-enabled beehives that help farmers monitor their bees remotely.
My name is Emadago Onekwe William. I am 23 years old and I am from Jos, Nigeria. I am the CEO and co-founder of Valley Bee. I and my team applied to the 2022 Africa Digital Innovation Competition because we saw the massive impact it will have in our product. We saw financial opportunity, the mentorship, and also the strategic partnership we can get from being part of this competition. One of the top 10 finalists in this competition means a lot to me personally and also to our startup, because this would give us the opportunity to showcase our work and our technology to the world. This would have a massive impact on the climate and also on local beekeepers. Our product is a smart hive that is IoT enabled and sensor enabled that constantly maintains the optimal temperature and humidity that bee needs to produce honey. With our product, farmers can increase their honey yield and actually have a great impact on their local family and also to the environment. Our project will have tremendous impact in the life of local farmers and beekeepers here in Nigeria and also in Africa, because we are producing a product that will help them increase their honey yield and also maximize their profit. And as a country like Nigeria imports over $2 billion worth of honey per year, we are empowering these farmers to cash in this market and also make the maximum of profit. Our project also have impact in the pharmaceutical and medical industry, in that honey is a very important raw material for drug production. The first thing we will do if we win this competition is to acquire more equipment and raw material to expand our business to 2 more states in Nigeria, Kaduna and Nasarawa states.
Tomorrow on Africa 54, we'll profile Ghana's Benjamin Asiedu and his startup TradeRex. Protests in Iran raged into a second month after a woman there died in police custody. Mahsa Amini has become the face of a human rights movement focused on ridding the country of the Islamic Republic. Images surfaced over the weekend of an infamous prison in Iran known for housing political prisoners engulfed in flames. Meanwhile, the White House continues to pledge its support for demonstrators. VOA's Arasha Basadi has more.
Flames and smoke rise from Evin prison in Tehran. Details remain unclear as to how the notorious facility known for housing political prisoners in Iran caught fire. The prison blaze raged against the backdrop of what is now the second month of sometimes violent street demonstrations in the Islamic Republic. It all started when 22-year-old Mahsa Amini died in the custody of Iran's morality police. The Islamic Republic released a video claiming to show Amini collapsing in a police station. Iran says the fall triggered a fatal heart attack, but her family disputes that account, telling VOA Persian Amini had no known heart troubles prior to her arrest. News of Amini's death sparked global outrage and demonstrations, with some Iranians burning their passports outside the Iranian embassy in Chile. The outrage continues to spark a worldwide movement opposed to Iran's theocratic government.
Iran has to end the violence against his own citizens simply exercising their fundamental rights. And, you know, Masha Amini's death was, I've been doing foreign policy a long, long time. It stunned me what it awakened in Iran. And it's awakened something that I don't think will be quieted in a long, long time.
Meanwhile, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who at first said he was heartbroken by Amini's death, has since turned to blaming the United States and Israel for sowing dissent in the Islamic Republic. He says protests won't destroy the country's foundations. But Iranians keep sending videos to VOA showing widespread demonstrations, with some burning banners of Iranian officials. One recent video captures voices chanting from the rooftops in Tehran, "Death to the dictator," a popular call against the supreme leader. Some jailed at the smoldering Evin prison are known to be dual nationals of Western affiliation. The State Department says it's working with Swiss partners to secure their release. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.